Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today's video is the first of a monthly series called A Tank a Month, or ATAM for short. The name's pretty self-explanatory. I build a tank each month. The videos will consist of me talking about how I built the tank, building tips, and some other stuff. My goal for this series is to get as many of the tanks I build this year into Hall of Fame, and maybe even into Boat of the Week. Now, before anyone goes in the comments to make suggestions for me to build, I've already got the whole year planned out. I've already shown a few people this schedule, however I'll keep it a secret for the most part. Most of the tanks I build this year will be from the Cold War era, mainly because they're not built very often in the build-a-boat tank building community, and also because they tend to have more difficult to build shapes than other tanks. I will also be building a few maps this year, like the one you see in this video, some of which will be much more detailed but much smaller in size. These will be showcasing and for things like Hall of Fame. Other maps will be much less detailed, but many plots in size, intended for tank battles. I'm sure anyone who's had a tank battle before has kinda wished they could fight on a proper map. I've been wanting to make lots of PvP maps for a while now, as it opens up a lot of opportunities for unique and game mode based battles, as well as content. You can expect a lot of PvP content based around the maps I'll be building this year. Now, with all that aside, let's get into talking about the M48A2. Before I started working on the M48, I had just finished working on the M24 Chaffee light tank, as well as some other smaller projects. The M24 was a pretty tricky tank to build, but I wanted an even bigger challenge. The last time I got into Hall of Fame was in early 2022, with my Tiger II H tank. And while I think that my M24 is much more well built than my Tiger II, it seems as if the standards for Hall of Fame have increased since then. Another issue plaguing pretty much all of my tanks and hindering their ability to get into Hall of Fame was the fact that I put working tank tracks on all my tanks. These are very fun to drive around with, but you have to sacrifice detail in the wheels and tracks so that they aren't extremely laggy. If you look at my tank showcase video, you'll notice that pretty much all the tanks I built in the second section of it have simple circles for wheels and blocks for tracks. Originally, I planned to make two versions of the M48, one with working tracks and the other with detailed tracks. However, due to time constraints, I had to scrap this plan and only build the version with detailed tracks. When first deciding what tank to build after the M24, I knew I wanted to build something that would be extremely challenging and one that could easily get into Hall of Fame. One tank came straight to mind, that being the M48 Patton. I saw that there were little to no flat surfaces at all in the tank to work with, and knew it would be a great tank to build. I jokingly called it the final boss of tank building, due to its very complicated shapes. I started building the front hull, which turned out to be easier than I expected. If you look at it, you'll notice it's actually just the same repeating shape in a partial circle, as well as some simple protrusions to the sides. The rest of the hull was also pretty simple, however the back area by the engine was very tedious with the amount of blocks that were in it. Then I moved on to the turret, and started with the front left, which was also fairly simple, as it was also a repeating shape in a partial circle. The rest of the turret, however, was very difficult, as there were no consistent shapes on any part of it, and ended up taking me many days to complete the turret. And after that, I built the tracks, which for the most part were simple. However, they were a little tedious to do, and ended up taking about a day to complete. Lastly were the decals, like the 4th Tank Battalion and Blue Arrow's flag, as well as the equipment, like the bags on the back of the turret and ammo boxes. After finishing those last few details, the tank was done. In total, it consists of about 16k blocks, which is the highest part count on any of my tanks. Technically, I actually spent 1.5 months building it, as I started it in mid-December. Overall, it was very challenging, like I expected, but it turned out very well, and I'm proud of it. I would consider it my current best tank, though that may change eventually. After finishing the tank itself, I quickly threw together a Vietnam-themed map for the M48 to be on when I submitted it to Hall of Fame, which admittedly was somewhat lazily put together. Most of it consists of the same builds duplicated all around, but it too turned out well. The map actually has a similar part count to the tank itself at about 17k parts. I plan to make a much larger Vietnam-themed map with less parts to reduce lag, which can be used for tank battles. However, it isn't my main focus currently. Now, with the tank and map ready, I took a few pictures, big thanks to Mako Reverse for the T-34, and cropped them to make them look perfect for Hall of Fame. Now is the moment of truth. Let's submit it.
A few moments later.
So yeah, it got into Hall of Fame, and pretty quickly too, just 40 minutes after I submitted it, so I'd consider it a great success. It feels very rewarding to have my hard work pay off, so I'm glad it made it in. However, there won't be much time to celebrate, as I have to move on to my next tank for the month of February. I typically won't do this each month, but I will reveal the tank I'm building for February. A week or two back, Gaming is Awesome challenged me to a T-34 building competition, as well as Arisu, also known as Doc. No, not the Russian one, but the American heavy tank. Gaming, Arisu, and I will all be competing to build the best T-34 heavy, and following my series schedule, I'll have mine done by the end of February. To be quite honest, pretty much every tank looks easier to build now after building the M48. I guess it's because I've done some of the hardest stuff with the M48, and most other things aren't as difficult to build as it. So yeah, hopefully I can get it done by the end of the month, and maybe get some leftover time to work on some tank battle maps too. Anyways, that's pretty much all I've got to say for this video. Thank you all for watching, and see you next time.